Hello everyone, it's Anahita Rao again, and I'm back with the Planet series, and today I will speak about Venus. So Venus, in Sanskrit, there's Shukra, which means sweet, which is why it represents relationships in a chart, all relationships. It signifies beauty, it signifies luxury, art, music, dance, theater, poetry, all manifestations of the Venus impulse. To go back to mythology briefly, we can see what really Venus is, and that will help us understand how it plays out in the chart. So in mythology, Venus, known as Shukracharya, is a son of Bhrigu, who was one of the Vedic sages. Bhrigu, of course, is where a lot of the Vedic astrology, the Jyotish, stems from. That makes Shukracharya probably the most occult, powerful, and mysterious planets of a birth chart. Often people assume that because it represents the guru, that when you talk about astrology and when you talk about occult, that guru has to be the planet to focus on. But in fact, Venus is the more powerful of the two, and we'll speak about that and why. Shukracharya was the guru to the asuras, or rather you can say demons. Or in today's world would be, the giants of the world, the leaders and so on, powerful people. So it symbolizes wealth, cars, homes, ability to attract material and sensual pleasures in one's life. This is probably the biggest distinction between Jupiter and Venus. Venus is more concerned about the material and sensual path, whereas Jupiter is more focused on the righteous, the wisdom, the knowledge, the tradition. So perhaps is not as applicable in today's era to give you the power that you might need to accomplish your goals. And this is also the distinction between Venus being the guru to the asuras, whereas Jupiter was the guru to the gods, and so his approach is more traditional and perhaps even conservative, because Jupiter doesn't like to share its knowledge with everyone, even though it has an abundance of knowledge and wisdom. It is very selective about who it chooses to reveal this to, because of the fact that it has that sort of traditional righteous element to it. Whereas Venus is not that way at all. Venus is much more generous with spreading knowledge and giving it out, and so. This is why it's the planet that is representative of most of the the powerful people, because you don't have to do some sort of a penance or sacrifice to get knowledge through Venus. Your goal obviously has to be more on the material level than the spiritual level, and that applies to most of us in today's era. So it's a very applicable energy in the day and age that we live in. So having a very strong Venus is really a big blessing in a chart. So what about the relationship quality? Well, because of the intensive, so it's very sensitized planet. So that means the perceptive faculties of the person who has a strong Venus are going to be very enhanced. A person can become very responsive to feelings and thoughts of others, and they're more considerate. The reason it gets exalted in Pisces is because Pisces is the house that represents universal love, and as I said, Venus is a sort of all embracing. The higher quality, the higher vibration of Venus is all embracing, because it doesn't want to find fault in others, in relationships. It wants to sort of just be with everyone. This is why it gets debilitated in Virgo, because Virgo is a very critical sign, and it's very detail orientated, and it's nitpicky, and that's why it brings out those qualities of Venus, which is not its innate nature. So in a man's chart, as we all know, it represents the wife, but it also represents the girlfriend. It is symbolic of all of those things in a man's chart. For both men and women, it represents relationships, especially marriage in general. The quality of the marriage itself is represented by Venus for both men and women. So now the ultimate Venus impulse is actually procreation. Reason being is because Venus is essentially the semen. Whereas Jupiter represents sort of the spiritual and happy quality in a marriage, Venus represents the more material, procreative quality of a marriage. So you obviously need both, and you obviously need both at different times. I mean, obviously, in order to attract a partner, the sensuous, the passionate side of Venus has to be on display. So in the beginning of a relationship, the Venus quality is extremely important. But as a relationship progresses over time, you have to have a strong Jupiterian quality in the relationship, in the marriage, for it to last. Because if you don't have that spiritual link, and it could come from also your family connection, or it could come from the fact that you both have a spiritual outlook on life. If you don't share that, or if you don't share similar values, then the marriage will break down after your Venus qualities fade away. And they do, and they always do. Venus creates the urge to bind, to connect to someone else, to another human being. But in contrast, Jupiter creates the happiness in the relationship through the wisdom and the spirituality and the balance that has to come in the relationship for it to sustain. Now, one peculiar characteristic, a power, actually, you can call it a power, and it is a power that Venus has, which other planets don't have. It is called Mritya Sanjeevani in the Vedic tradition, which means the power to bring back to life. Yeah? So the Sanjeevani power is only given to Shukracharya, and he can exercise it. So how does this work in your chart, for example? So let's say you have a very, very well placed, strong Venus in your birth chart. And let's say, for instance, that very strong Venus rules the 10th house. And it is being aspected by a planet that is ruling the 6th house. Then you would, for instance, have the ability to be a very good healer. And you can have a profession in that. Because again, the 6th house is for healing, and 10th house is for career. Or another example is it's being aspected, so it's still the 10th Lord Venus, for example, for a Leo Lagna, but it's being aspected by a planet ruling the 5th house. Then you can be published and your name will live beyond your lifespan. So that's an example of how that Sanjeevani power is played out in the chart. As the fifth house, you know, represents things like publishing, literature, and intelligence, and fame, and things like that. Venus is a Karaka for beauty, but also for fame, of course for marriage and all relationships. What else? Sensual pleasures, nourishing food, perfumes, clothes, dance, music, any sort of sexual and sensual pleasures, and even fame to some degree. So I hope you found that helpful. Feel free to subscribe below if you want to hear more videos, and also have a look at my website, anhitarao.com. Thank you. Bye.